Okay, everybody, welcome back. Now we've gone through a bunch of segments about the sales pitch, about handling objections, and other maybe rebuttals that they give us. But right now we're going to focus on some frequently asked questions. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of them. But what you'll notice is that there are a core group of common frequently asked questions that most people ask. So let's jump right in and get started. One of the most commonly asked ones is, does CBD make you high? Does it cause any type of psychoactive effect or cause euphoria? The answer is absolutely not. Unlike THC, which is psychoactive part of the plant, hemp actually contains very little amount of THC, less than 0.3%. Another question that you often get is, how much CBD should I take? Now, here's the truth. There is no scale or ruler that says how much a person should take. Purwell's philosophy is start low and go slow. So let's take a tincture, for example. Let's just assume you have the milligrams dialed in as far as it's a 500 milligram tincture, it's 1,000 or a 1,500, have you, etc. We suggest that you start with a dropper, once or twice a day to get acclimated to it, okay? Now, if you feel after a few days that you're not getting enough response, obviously you increase the amount. But you don't go from a dropper to a full dropper. You go from a dropper to 3/4 of a dropper. It's like walking up the stairs, right? Because truth of the matter is you want to find the quote-unquote zone in that amount that works best for you. But if you start high, it's kind of hard to go back down the stairs. We are all good at taking more of anything. We know that, right? So start at the bottom step and work your way up. Now, let's say that was with a gummy. Well, most of our gummies, I think all of them, yeah, they're 20 milligrams per gummy. So if you take one, you're ingesting 20 milligrams, but if you thought that you might have a sensitivity to them, you could actually cut them in half, and now you're administering around 10 milligrams each. So again, low and slow. What happens if after several days at one, amount of taking it, you don't feel anything? Listen to your body. That's going to be the barometer to let you know whether you're on the right track or maybe you take a little bit more. So that is really the best way that I would answer that question. There's no right amount or wrong amount. It's what works best for the individual. That also has to do with the form factor as well, and we'll get into that later. But what works for some may not work for others. So there's always an adjustment period until you get comfortable. Another question that we get is, how is CBD different from marijuana? Now, this will kind of piggyback on the question of, can CBD get you high? The difference between CBD and marijuana is this. Think about one tree, but different branches. So the tree is Cannabis sativa L. One branch is called hemp, the other branch is called marijuana. Marijuana is A, illegal, B, contains a high amount of THC, and C, gets you high, it causes that euphoria, okay? Whereas the hemp plant is just the opposite. It has a low amount of THC, almost non-existent, so minuscule that the federal government permits it to be legal federally in all 50 states, okay? What it has is a high amount of CBD, the medicinal part of the plant that does not cause any type of high or euphoria. So those are and obviously it's legal, like I said. So those are the main differences between CBD and marijuana or hemp and THC. How does CBD oil work in the body? I could spend an hour talking about this, but I'll condense it down into the next 30 to 45 seconds because it's part of the training. There's something called the endocannabinoid system, and that is a network of receptors in our body. They are proliferated throughout the brain, the spinal cord, your nervous system, your peripheral organs. I mean, pretty much, your skin tissue. You have millions and millions and millions of these cannabinoid receptors. They're known as the CB1 and the CB2 receptor. And the different cannabinoids in hemp, when ingested, interact with these receptors to bring about different sensations or effects in the body. Mood, appetite, pain expression in the body, sleep cycles are just some of these functions, to name a few. So the constituents or the components of the hemp plant is what interacts with those receptors, the endocannabinoid system, to try to drive homeostasis or a balance in the body. That's about as deep as I'm going to go into that right now, because we just want to kind of keep it high level. But let me tell you something, if you could recite that, even half of that, you know more than most people. And believe me, you're going to start making a lot of sense to a lot of people very soon. Let's keep going. I mean, we got pages and pages of, you know, frequently asked questions. Here's a good one of my favorites. How does Purwell ensure product quality and consistency? We don't. We just guess at it. Of course, that's not the answer. This is how we do it. It starts right from the plant, and it goes back to the very beginning of that plant starting as a seed, and then being harvested, and then being what's called cloned. What that means is that when you grow the next plant, we are not growing it from a seed. We are clipping a part of a leaf off of a female plant that was grown from the seed and planting that in the soil. That actually begins to take root and will grow a plant that is genetically identical to the mother. Now, because we're a medicinally focused CBD company and we're working with physicians and healthcare practitioners, it's important for us to be able to maintain the consistency and the predictability of our product. The way that we do that is cloning, okay? So the 3 strains that we use to bring about the formulations of Purwell's products are from cloned plants. So that consistency and predictability remains from batch to batch to batch. Meaning, if your mother tried a product today for, let's say, stress or anxiety, and she found out that it was very effective and it helped her, if she bought the product, same one, same amount of milligrams, 4 months down the road, it should not be a different experience or a different effect. Unfortunately, a lot of people complain about having that very experience with other CBD products. That is because when they source their hemp, it may be from this state and this hemp field, this batch, and from a completely different state and another farm or hemp field, the next batch. How does one control predictability and consistency? In that, scenario, you don't. So that's how we guarantee the consistency and the predictability. But to take it a step further, it's in the third-party lab tests, okay? These are tests not done in-house. They are done outside by an independent lab that tests for the cannabinoid profile, the potency of the CBD, and to ensure that there's no more than 0.3% THC. That is where most companies stop in their testing. Testing is expensive, and companies like to cut corners. We can't afford to do that. So we send our products to what's called a full profile test, okay? That means that we don't stop at the amount of CBD and THC in our product, because if you did, could you tell me whether or not there was mold in your product? You can't. I mean, you'd be guessing. It wasn't tested for it, so if it's not tested for it, there may be. And I could go through that with heavy metals and other mycotoxins, things like that. We do these full panel tests because we are serving not just the medical community and their patients, but the community at large. So there is a degree of integrity and efficacy that has to go into everything that we do, okay? So we test for the mold, we test for the residual solvents and heavy metals and other pesticides, okay? Full panel reports are available on our website for all products. How's that for ensuring integrity and consistency with our products? The product and safety information is actually also available on our bottle and on the packaging as well. If you'll notice, and I apologize, it may be hard to see, there's a QR code right here. Now, if you hold your smartphone up to that QR code, it's going to actually take you out to a website that hosts the third-party certificates of analysis. So you'll be able to see all of those pages that I mentioned for each individual product that Purwell makes. Again, it's not only on the label itself from the product, but on the outside packaging of the bottle as well. Here's a good one. Does Purwell's CBD products contain THC? And the answer is yes, they do. But remember what that means. A, that doesn't mean that you're going to get high by ingesting Purwell's products. B, it doesn't mean that the product is illegal. What it simply means is that our product formulations are quote unquote full spectrum. There are three basic pillars or categories of CBD product formulation. There's full spectrum, there's broad spectrum, and then there's CBD isolate. But let me get back to answer the first initial question. Does Purwell CBD products have THC in them? Yes, because they are full spectrum. How much? You could look at the lab report, but it's approximately 0.2%, 0.2%, so it's below the legal permissible limit of 0.3. That being said, you could take a whole bottle of our tincture. You could swallow a bunch of capsules, 10 milligram capsules. There's not enough THC or a significant amount to cause any type of psychoactive effect or psychotropic or euphoric effect. So you're not going to get high, okay? Even though Purwell's products are full spectrum. Now, THC, it's really a small component of our products. The largest component in our product is CBD, and that's where the medicine comes in. Now, because it's full spectrum, it has other minor cannabinoids like CBG, which is cannabigerol, CBC, that's cannabichromine. We can go on and on and on, there's a lot of them. But the point is that there are trace amounts of hundreds of beneficial molecules in Purwell's full spectrum products, which sets them apart from a broad spectrum or an isolate. Now is probably not the time to necessarily go in and delve down into the broad spectrum and isolate deeply, so I'll just quickly say this on the surface. Full spectrum contains cannabinoids, flavonoids, and terpenes. We're going to learn all about that later. Broad spectrum contains cannabinoids, flavonoids, and terpenes, but it has no THC. A CBD isolate is exactly what the word implicates. It's an isolated molecule, one component, CBD. Now, if we're going to be treating medical or, let's say symptomatic things, right? Aches, sleeplessness, stress, we want to give a product that has the highest therapeutic value. CBD isolate, it's good for like lower level aches and pains, anxiety, etc. Broad spectrum, a step up from that because it has the terpenes and flavonoids unlike the CBD isolate, but no THC. Getting back to Purwell, the full spectrum with a little bit amount of THC, that is going to provide the most or the greatest chance for a therapeutic experience. Now people say, does it really make that big of a difference because you said it's such a small nominal amount of THC? And the answer is absolutely. In fact, studies have shown that THC may be what's called it potentiates the other cannabinoids, which means that they work synergistically together for a stronger effect. Now, more studies need to be done, but full spectrum, time and time again, has been shown to address the broadest range of symptoms from a myriad of conditions. And that is why Purwell formulates a full spectrum whole plant CBD hemp product.